Today's video is going to be about sugar and your brain. So, what do they have in common? What does sugar do to the brain? And how can we alleviate some of these problems? So, if we think, how much sugar do we actually eat as South Africans? The general guideline for sugar intake is about 20 to 30 grams per day. So let's say 25 grams per day. That is kind of the sweet spot we want to be. Now, as South Africans, want to take a guess what we're actually averagely consuming a day? Around 80 to 100 grams of sugar per day. That is a lot of extra sugar we are getting in our diets. We love sugar, and we all love sugar. We all like cookies, ice cream, sweet desserts, chocolate mousse. Well, I know, a Woolworths chocolate mousse, that's my death. But the thing is, excess sugar intake leads to diabetes, dental decay, obesity, even in some cases can lead us to depression. And you will see why I'm saying that. And if you think sugar cravings, a lot of times it's like our brain is hardwired to want these sugary snacks, these cravings and everything. And truth be told, our brain is actually wired to want these kinds of stuff. And the reason for that is, if you think back in history, we were foragers, we were scavengers, we were hunters. We had to go look for food on a daily basis. And when we came across something that was sweet, we would eat as much of it as we can get until it's all gone. Because sweet stuff generally has a lot of energy. And we are programmed to want that sweet stuff. Because in nature, something sweet is generally good. It has energy, and that will keep us alive. Where bitter and sour things were generally more taste of things aren't right. Things aren't ripe yet. They're unhealthy in the sense of they might kill us. They might be poisonous. So in nature, sweet is a very good indicator of energy. And why do I keep saying energy? What keeps every living creature alive? Energy. We need to consume energy in order to stay alive. That is why our brain is hardwired to want something sweet, in the sense energy. That craving of something sweet when we need energy. And we have receptors in our mouth, in our stomach, that actually is constantly looking for high energy substances. So what drives us to want more sweet things? And one of the key culprits of wanting to drive us to want more sweet things is the wanting neurotransmitter. And what is that? Dopamine. Dopamine drives us to do more of things we find as a positive. And also the thing is, the more we eat sugar, the less sweet it actually tastes, and the less of a dopamine we get. So what does that force us to do? To want more sweet food, to want more of that thing, and the cravings get bigger and bigger and bigger. These dopamine hits from eating sugar promotes rapid learning in the brain in the way, if we keep doing it, we are teaching our brain to want it. These dopamine hits go up, we get taught that's what gives us the dopamine hit, the dopamine goes down, and we're going to repeat that same pattern of wanting more of it. And that can be sugar, it can be sex, gambling, drug addictions, social media, online gaming. It's anything you perceive as bringing you joy, as a positive. Those things give you a dopamine hit, and the more we do it, the more we get taught to do the same thing. Now with sugar, it actually goes deeper because sugar is energy. In our stomach, we've got receptors looking for it. That will also activate the dopamine pathway. In our gut, we actually have receptors looking for it, and it's the same thing. It's a survival mechanism. So, but now, to go a bit deeper, what does sugar do to the brain? The brain continuously remodels and rewires itself. That's what's called neuroplasticity. And when we eat sugar, we get these dopamine hits, we are rewiring our brain in certain ways to encourage these behaviors. And the more we encourage this behavior, the more we want to do that thing. Sweet things become less sweet. We want more sugar. If we're stressed, we want sugar. If we had a bad day, we want to reward ourselves with sugar. Now we're encouraging that pattern more and more and more. At what expense? The expense comes in that sugar is just energy. There's no nutrient value to sugar. We need energy to survive. But the thing is, food has different macronutrients. There's proteins, there's carbs, and there's fats. Each of these bring a different thing to the table. Whereas with sugar, it's just sweet. It gives us a massive dopamine hit, but it has no real vitamins, minerals, any protein really to it. There's no fats to it for that part of the aspect. It's literally just energy. And it's easy then to overconsume energy. And the problem is if we overconsume energy, it makes it easier to gain weight. Remember, energy balance is universal. And what I mean with that, if you consume more energy than you need, you will gain weight. If you consume less energy than you need, you will lose weight. Energy can't be destroyed. And I hear what you're saying. You're going to get a calorie isn't a calorie and a calorie is a calorie and all these kinds of stuff. I'm not talking about individual calories now. I'm talking about energy overall. We are going to have a video where I dive into how calories get processed. Different things can have a different effect of that, the thermogenic effect of protein and all these things. But sugar is just energy. If you're an athlete, endurance athlete, and you're running for 3 hours, 4 hours, cycling for 7 hours, you need quick energy, yes, then sugars can be beneficial. But for most of us living a normal life, that's a lot of sedentary styles, we don't move that much. Sugar is empty energy without the nutrients giving the body the building blocks it needs in order to sustain itself in a healthy manner. Now, how do we start saying no to sugar? Please share this video, hit the like button, and I would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. In the prefrontal cortex, we have neurons that can help us with impulse control. A key area involved in decision making, logic, and reasoning is the prefrontal cortex. These impulse control neurons are like the brain's handbrake. They release a chemical called GABA. And GABA is what gives us the ability to reason clearly, logically, to say no to things. It makes it easier to say no and not crumble under our impulses. Now, with a lot of sugar intake, a lot of these GABA neurotransmitters that are sensitive to picking up on GABA actually becomes numb to it. So we don't produce as much GABA, we don't notice as much GABA, which makes saying no to things so much difficult. And even tired state generally. Think of a hard day. You had a hard day, stressful day at work, you get home. How difficult it is to say no to sugar compared to how easy it is to say no to sugar early in the morning. Sugar alters how our brain in the prefrontal cortex area and these impulse control neurons function. Compare that with an excess amount of sugar eating, which leads to more cravings, and then a downregulation of GABA, where we are less sensitive to GABA, and you have this bridge and scale going this, and we become a slave to sugar. Another area affected by sugar and the brain is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is responsible for memory. And sugar has been shown in a few different studies to negatively impact the hippocampus, which negatively impacts our memory. So I don't think I even have to elaborate on that, what sugar does to memory. I don't think anybody wants to bring down their memory. In fact, we generally try to do the opposite. So sugar has a negative impact on the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. And that affects us. Plus then the addictiveness of sugar due to the dopamine hit, the high energy content, biological standpoint, wanting us to want more of it. So how do we protect our brain from the negative aspects of sugar? The first thing will be we need to cut down on sugar. I'm not saying eliminate completely, that would be perfect, but nowadays sugar is almost in everything we consume. It's hidden in everything because companies that produce foods that need to sell knows the effect sugar has on the brain, the dopamine pathway, the addictiveness to it, your brain's going to tell you, I want more of this, feed me. So we put a lot of sugar in foods because it makes it tastier and more difficult to say no to. Think of that Cadbury chocolate. You take one block, put in your mouth. Oh, it was nice. You close the little packet, done. No, you're going to finish the whole slab until it's done. That's a very good example of why that happens. 3 things we can do to really start breaking this pattern and help us protect our brain. Number 1, cut down on sugar. Number 2, exercise. Move the body. The moment we move and we exercise, we are actually flushing our system from glucose, which means we can use the glucose in our system, which glucose is one of the 3 sugars, and blood glucose comes down. We can utilize fat and replenish our glucose stores. Even after a meal, a 20-minute walk, it's amazing just for a glucose flush of the system. The next one, very important, omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids is like a fertilizer for the brain. Some of the effects sugar has on the brain, omega-3s can help that. Omega-3s is found in things like fatty fish, mackerel, sardines, salmon, pilchards. But I am going to have a deep dive into omega-3s, so just look out for that one. These 3 things, cutting down on sugar, moving the body, and getting fatty fish in your diet, helps the neuroprotective capabilities of the brain. It gives you that extra layer of protectiveness, the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. While it's not easy to break these habits of dessert and ice cream and waffles and all this nice stuff, it's about building the awareness of how it affects us, where we find it, and what we can do to break it. I personally enjoy all these things, occasionally, not on a daily basis. Also, ask yourself, if you've got these cravings for sugar, is it from a physical standpoint? Are you hungry? Is your energy depleted? Or is it more from a mental aspect, where you've been teaching yourself these dopamine hits in the scenarios to want that thing? Is it due to stress, anxiety, coping, just having a bad day? Why do you have those sugar cravings? A lot of times we don't stop and think what is actually driving the sugar craving. And the more aware we can become of these sugar cravings, when we have them, why we have them, the easier it becomes to work in solving them. A lot of times it's a difficult conversation with work. It's a stressful email you have to do. It's having a conference call with people you don't like. That's stress. You have the conference call. After it, you've got sugar cravings. So the sugar cravings was actually caused by a stressor before the craving. Then we can start unpacking why we have all these sugar cravings. And the thing is, the more we give into these cravings, the more we affect the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, the GABA production, and the less we can say no to it. I'm not even going into the metabolic effect sugar has on it. Today's video is just about our brain and sugar. Our next video is going to be about sugar, metabolic adaptations, and liver. If there's anything you want to know more about sugar, questions, your doubts about sugar, or you want tips around sugar, or anything you struggle sugar related, coping, stress, depression, all these things, leave me a comment down below and let's start building a bit of a conversation going on this, guys. And until our next video, have a lovely day and stop eating sugar. I had to get that in there.